Welcome back to the Philosopher Explorer. My name's Kia, and this is the thoughtcast. We're going to be diving into a bit of a wild one today, so we're looking at the question: at what point do you stop being human? If at one by one you remove human tendencies to laugh or cry, to be jealous. Now, this isn't a place for us to come up with answers, it's more just to sit with the question and try and grapple with it. Stick around, grab a cuppa, and maybe put your thinking cap on. Let's dive into it. Starting us off, what do you think would be the first layer you could take away that would start to dehumanize a person? Because animals laugh, right? They can feel sad. I think some can cry. Do you think dogs get jealous? Is defensiveness one? Would defensiveness be a trait, like a human tendency? You could go tendency to be defensive. I'd have to elaborate what I mean, because I get it. Other animals get defensive, especially strays and things, animals like that. But what I mean is egotistically defensive. So we defend the character that we think we are. We defend abstract ideas. So what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Put it down in the comments. Now, that thing you said about defensiveness, especially egotistical defensiveness, now we're properly digging in. That might be the first thing I'd clock as human specific, because, like, animals defend food or territory, but humans defend ideas. We'll go to war over the sentence on a flag. We go to war over the ability for freedom of expression or of ideas, to elaborate. If you lost that layer, if you weren't defensive about your ideas or identity anymore, right? If someone insulted you and you just didn't care, would you feel less human or just more free? I think I would have to rebuttal with the idea that maybe you are still caring in a sense, because you have to react to the input in a certain way, so you have to, and I'll put this in speech marks, care whether or not it makes you less human. Obviously, I don't think you would feel less human just by not being affected by someone's opinion in a negative sense. I mean, like, if you were to let go of defending ideas of just general existence, like if you were to stop kind of putting labels on things, if the whole human race stopped putting labels on things, where would we where would we actually end up? Would we still be the human race if we stopped putting ideas or labels upon things? And the first labels came as grunts and points and stuff, right? You know, you'd use a physical item to represent something else, or you would use a word like a grunt to represent an idea. Now it's more complicated, but it's still the same fashion, right? Because do you think a pigeon sees the fence and thinks that's a fence? No, it just sees the fence and thinks sit. But I don't think it just does. Maybe that's the human tendency that we do differently to other animals. Think. Goes all cotton mouth, this couple, like, I'm not gonna lie. Right, so he goes on to say, and that point about reacting still being a kind of caring, even apathy's a stance. Choosing not to react is a reaction. There's always a process happening. That's maybe one of the big separators, awareness of the choice, not just instinctual motion. But what he's saying there, actually, in regards to awareness, that's got my cogs turning in regards to self-awareness. I think that could be a massive one. But there's a lot of people who aren't really that self-aware, and what am I then saying, that they're not human? That they're just NPCs? No, I would never. I'm not perfect, but at the same time, I try to catch myself before I say something ridiculous, or if I have said something ridiculous, I try to correct it and save it. But sometimes you cannot save it. But like, some people don't even try; it just comes out absolutely nonsense. And you're like, really? Those people who do possess a high level of self-awareness, we perceive those as, like, you know, really human people who have high humility and they're usually aware of their flaws and try to improve on them. Whereas people who aren't aware, they're not really improving, so as there's not much development. And I suppose humans, we're all about innovation, building, and development. So could that be the link between what makes us human? Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of people probably screaming consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. But and I get it, but I feel like that's a blanket term for just like awareness and a recognition for mortality and a perception of past, present, and future. Could we say that other animals aren't aware? Suppose there's awarenesses in different states, right? Like a rock isn't aware because it doesn't have senses, so it depends on how many senses and how those senses work in regards to the processor that it has, right? Continuing on with what our boy was saying, though, he reckons, because without labels, how do we even build a self? Like, I'm Kia, you're Kia, this is a shed, this is a mic, that's an idea, this is mine. Strip all that away and what are you? Just like presence, experience, some blank meat clock ticking through sensation. That's a really weird idea, isn't it? Just being a meat clock ticking through sensation. Maybe deeper than just presence, maybe presence with awareness of past and future. So past actions that influence who I think I am and where I want to go and what I've got available to us, plus future desires of what I want out of my life and who I want to be, affecting who I am in that very single moment and what actions I take in each choice. And then you go on to say, but you bang on with the pigeon comparison. Animals don't categorise the world, they move through it, we narrate it, we're human. Oh, we narrate it, that's human. So maybe the moments you stop naming things, stop putting things in boxes, that's when you start drifting away from humanity. Like you still feel alive, but no, human alive, something else. Well, when you said you start drifting away from humanity, I can remember a time I felt like I was drifting away from sanity. It was a time when I actually did start to question every single thing, and I'm not going to lie, it was probably around the time that I'd ever first taken a little bit of a hallucinogenic, and it was a few weeks after I started asking some weird questions, like why do we wear shoes, and like talking a specific way, and how did things develop this way, and I just started like thinking, like, what the fuck is everything? Why is everything the way it is? And who made it this way? Or fucking how did it get like this? And I don't know if that was just my interest in like history or humanity kicking off, or if it was always going to happen, or if it was something to do with the hallucinogenics I took a few weeks prior. I can't tell you. It was like I'd kind of relinquished the idea that humans should have done it. It was like I'd reset the brain and was like, okay, so why aren't we in a forest now? Why do we have these things on our feet? Why do we have the clothes on our back? Why do we speak the way we do? And why is everything the way it is? Let's go from the beginning again, from the top. Holy hell, I think I've missed it all. Not gonna lie, I'm snapping sitting on this bench. Let's sit on this bit a little bit. Maybe we just landed on what makes man. Self-awareness plus narrative plus the drive to refine through time. That combo, not just knowing you exist, but how you exist, why you exist, how you could exist better. That constant mental tug of war between the me you was, the me you are, and the me you want to be. But what caught me was when you mentioned the sanity drift, like when you pulled off too many layers too fast and started asking, why shoes? Why words? Why this fucking structure we're in? Bro, that's like humanness in reverse, like peeling an onion till there's no left but burning air. You got too far back to be a settings, started seeing the code behind the curtain and went, wait, what the fuck is any of this? And I think a lot of people who's never been there, they can't even see how fragile that human illusion is. That's actually one of the things I realised actually in regards to when I peeled the layers, was how fragile humanity actually was. it wasn't immediately that I recognized that. It was just over time, especially as I got into politics as well. It was like, well, so we've got these people who are just as flawed as me running the country. It could just fall down like a stack of cards at any point. But let me ask you straight then, do you think it's dangerous to peel too much, to go too far into those questions? Or is it essential? Do we need to go mad for just a bit to be really awake? Or is that when we start becoming inhuman? Inhuman? When we stop being part of the game entirely? And also, fuck it, if you had to pick one trait right now that you reckon is the single last thing you could strip before you're not human anymore, what are you keeping? What are you keeping? In regards to your first question, is it essential to peel the layers back? Is it dangerous to peel too much, to go too far into those questions? There is, I suppose, some risk if you don't tether yourself and remind yourself that what has been has always been. The idea you're accepted before doesn't change just because you see through the illusion. You can still live by the illusion. It sucks at first because you think, well, you feel like you can see other better ways to live. And I'm not going to lie, I thought that at first, and after years of probing through different ideas, I actually believe that, to be honest, the state of the world's probably in one of the best places it could maybe be in. It could have had a few better turns through the line, but honestly, yeah, I couldn't really see I could improve on it too much, just because of how the human existence really is, all of our flaws and everything like that. So we've gotten here through a patchwork of, we've gotten to this point of humanity with through a patchwork of changes in identity and resources and everything like that, moving cultures and everything. And it is right, maybe essential, to strip back the layers and ask why and understand that, like, the reason that you've gotten there, because you've got to see that you're just animals dressing up and playing all smart to really kind of understand anything about yourself or people around you. And I don't think we should say we have to go mad, but more, I do think we should dive into it and allow ourselves to feel like we're about to go crazy. But you gotta tether yourself, remind yourself that, as I say, it's always been there. These are in place for a reason, and go ahead and go get your answers. Make sure you get your answers. If you had to pick one trait right now that you reckon is the single last thing you could strip before you're not human anymore, what are you keeping? Desire. I feel like that's the dumbest choice in the world, actually, now that I think about it. Like, that's actually probably the dumbest choice. You don't want to keep that shit. That actually probably is more what makes you human than self-awareness, maybe. But desire, because that, I believe, would be what makes people human as well. The need to go for something more. Not everyone has a great self-awareness, but does that really make them not human? No, it just means they're usually shit cunts. Whereas if they had no desire for anything, like, I get it if you're depressed and you've got no willingness and you no want for anything, and that can be sometimes a little different, but you do feel inhuman at the time. Most people admit that. You just feel like a fucking flesh bag and a soul stuck within it, and you're just like, oh God, get us out. Whereas obviously if you have a bit of desire and ambition, you feel like you've got a goal and a reason and purpose, and makes you feel a bit more human again, like you're meant to be here. So possibly a big amalgamation of things. Maybe there's not even a single word that could encapsulate what we need to keep to be human, but I'd say it lies somewhere between self-awareness and desire. Alright, so bro's currently shit the bed. He fucking didn't get any of the message, so I'm going to end it there. He probably wasn't going to see anything too fucking interesting on the back of that anyway. And next time we'll go even deeper. So, as I say, like, follow, share, stick around for the next one. I'll move on to the next one now, and I'll see you in the next one.